Welcome back, and if you're here for the first time, welcome to Equanimity and Diversity class number 2. I'm looking around to see if there's anyone brand new. I think everyone was here for the first class. Oh, but you're not brand new. Yeah, so Sally and Peter. Who was not here class number 1? Put your hand up. Of you who did not watch the video. Okay, this one, okay, good. Well, welcome. And let's sit quietly for a few minutes. Take a good posture, relaxed but alert. Relaxed and aware. It's good to have both feet on the floor flat if you're in a chair, if you can. That reminds us of the ground. And become aware of the breath, or whatever object you're used to using in your meditation. And relax the body. Relaxed and aware. You can turn your attention to bodily sensations anywhere there's tension. Just scan the body. Where there's tension, let it go. Just let it go out with the breath. And relax some more. Sensations and thoughts, emotions, just relax all of it. Nothing to do. Don't have to be anyone right now. Past is gone. Future isn't here. There's nothing to fix in the present. Just relax into the natural mind. It's impermanent. Just flowing. When you notice thoughts have Well, that you have grabbed onto thoughts. Let them go and come back to the breath. Okay, happy to see each and every one of you. Can you hear all right back there? Okay. Let's do our refuge prayer. I'm getting a little feedback up here, Linda, from the mic, just slightly. It may be fine if you're not bothered by it. Sounds okay, doesn't sound echoey or, okay, it's just here. So, who needs handouts? Cynthia has them. Put your hand up. You will need the handouts from the first class. If you don't have them, Cynthia will bring them.
I'll do the National Geographic one.
No, you won't need that one. We need the Refuge Prayer, the Buddhist quotes, the suggested Buddhist view. Just find those three.
I never think about that.
Do you have Refuge Prayer, Buddhist quotes, and the suggested Buddhist view? That's the concentric circles. People okay? You have it? If you don't have it, put your hand up. We have some. We can get you some.
Oh, you do have it there, because I remember last time you said it's going to be a hard part to remember.
Yeah, Cynthia has them. Let her know. Embarrassment is welcome. Since, yeah, yeah. Hiding it is welcome too. Whatever shows up today, welcome it. Otherwise, we have to fight. That's too stressful. Okay, we're going to do this refuge prayer together 3 times. And even though then it says dedication and it starts with without harming them, let's do that. Just that one statement, without harming them. It helps set an intention also. So the refuge prayer and then the first line of the dedication. I go for refuge to the 3 jewels through my practice of generosity, ethics, patience, joyous effort, concentration, and wisdom. May I liberate all sentient beings. I go for refuge to the 3 jewels through my practice of generosity, ethics, patience, joyous effort, concentration, and wisdom. May I liberate all sentient beings. I go for refuge to the 3 jewels through my practice of generosity, ethics, patience, joyous effort, concentration, and wisdom. May I liberate all sentient beings. Without harming them, may I always stop all beings in all worlds who wish to commit harmful deeds. Okay. Take a moment and let that sink into your heart. And let's remember together that every sentient being has Buddha nature. Pure, compassionate, wisdom, spontaneous, this is true about you too. And this is true about anyone you fear, anyone you dislike. This is true of them too. So, in terms of setting motivation for being here together, studying this, contemplating, meditating, bring to mind a few people you're close to and be here for them. And bring to mind some strangers, maybe your postal carrier, someone at the store, someone you saw on the way to class this morning, and be here for them. And bring to mind someone you dislike or who dislikes you. And be here for them. And imagine giving away to them any goodness that has already occurred by you coming, and any goodness that will occur, any positive momentum. Simply let it go and give it away to them. Okay. So this equanimity thing, I want to say a few things about it. First of all, you may already know, but it's nice to have a little blueprint. Hi, I didn't see you come in. Welcome back. Have a little blueprint. So equanimity is one of the 4 immeasurables. Now, you know, there's this dilemma when one is sitting up here in the role of a teacher temporarily. This dilemma that it's how much do we repeat stuff and how much do we try to be brand new? Because we're all about brand new, right? I want something different. Give me something different. But I learned with especially venerable children, at least for a student like me, repetition was helpful. So you're going to have to suffer through that with me. Why? Because all of my life, I've repeated things that cause suffering. I'm very good at repeating them to myself, to others. I repeat them in speech, thought, and action. So to shift a habit, it's quite good to make a new one that's possibly more helpful. So about these 4 immeasurables, loving kindness, it's good to memorize these so you can go, I know them, 1, 2, 3, 4, I can name them. Why? Because then you can pull them up in your mind and use them, okay? So loving kindness, compassion, equanimity, and joy. Okay, so it's one of the 4 immeasurables. And why are they immeasurable? tell us. We need a mic, by the way. You might want to unattach that. Who would like to say why they're immeasurable? You've heard this. Oh, Linda's got an extra mic. You've heard this, so just spout it right out. Carolyn, no. Carolyn's getting the mic, and Cynthia's.
It corrected my first misimpression. The immeasurable is immeasurable for the number of people, that there's no, and it's not even people, it's beings. It's for everyone, which ties in perfect with equanimity.
Yeah.
But the immeasurable always is the amount. You can't measure. It's boundless. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Boundless, limitless beings. Somewhere 7.5 billion humans. I can't imagine that. Then start in on animals. Forget it. Can't count them. And in the meantime, they're coming into the world, going out of the world, taking different forms, right? Forms, as we will. And then when you get to insects and beings that we cannot see, but that surely exist, I mean, we're not just stuck in this limited visual space, right? So that's the immeasurable beings. And because there are immeasurable beings, there are immeasurable diversities. Okay? Did you have something to add, Camilo?
I think that in addition to the immeasurable numbers of potential beneficiaries of those qualities is the fact that we tend to exhaust them in ourselves, and we need to remember to continue practicing them. So
yes, thank you. The qualities themselves are immeasurable. Yeah. Equanimity is immeasurable because if beings are, and my goal is to treat each one with equanimity, then my equanimity is also immeasurable. My compassion is immeasurable, the capacity of it. I'm not, because of our clashes and confusion, we don't act that way. I want to hold the discussion now for a minute, so hold your questions, because I want everybody to go around and say your name. And I want you to say one thing about, let's say, some kind of job you had that may be surprising to others. I don't want a big discussion of it, but just something you did as a job that is interesting, or you can say your main job. So I'll give you an example. My name is Zopa, and I worked in a pineapple cannery in Hawaii. Keep it that short.
My name is Bill, and I worked on a 5-acre organic farm.
We almost heard.
Right. My name is Bill, and I worked on a 5-acre organic farm.
You can pass that.
Is this your previous job that you're asking?
Any job of your whole life, just something interesting.
Okay, well, my name is Celeste, and I worked at OHSU Hospital.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Linda. I dealt craps in the casino for 25 years.
I didn't know that.
Our next fundraiser.
My name is Andrea. I went in the Peace Corps when I was 19.
Yay.
My name is Sally, and I worked for a Native organization, North Pacific Rim, in Alaska, implementing the Indian Child Welfare Act.
My name is Rosemary, and I used to be a labor lawyer representing private and public sector unions.
Hi, my name is Maggie, and I used to teach the psychology of prejudice in a university.
Good.
My name is Peter, and let's see, what helped get myself through grad school, I did massage. I was a massage therapist.
My name is Mary, and wow, While I was a nurse for a long time, I was also at one time a salmon roe packer. Packing salmon at roe eggs.
Roe, egg, salmon roe. Cool.
My name is Camilo. I had a job as an interior painter. I was really excellent at cutting in and also wood refinishing.
My name is Bob, and I cleaned all the restrooms at Portland Community College Sylvania campus. Such an exciting experience to do.
Thank you.
My name is Linda, and I worked with people with physical disabilities in the outdoors for 15 years.
Dora DeCourcy. I was a geographer for the Forest Service for 12 or so years.
I'm Jeff Gunn. I worked in the kitchen of a pizza shop in Honolulu.
Huh. We'll have to see if it was when I was canning pineapples.
Melissa Hicks. I think the hardest job I had was selling vacuum cleaners.
Oh, God.
My name is Laura, and I worked as a cook in an intentional community.
My name is Julie, and my first real job in high school was working as a waitress at this, or no, as a hostess for the Space Needle during the World's Fair.
Great.
My name's Cynthia. My favorite job was 8 years being self-employed, designing and building with wood.
I also was a vacuum cleaner demonstrator where you'd squirt chocolate syrup. And then it was a wet vac at Uncle Sam's or Sam's Club up in Fairbanks, Alaska.
My name is Miriam Hammer, and I was going to say I drove a taxi in the Hudson River Valley for a short while, but then I thought, oh, I also worked in a costume jewelry manufacturing place at one point.
My name is Lynn, and I briefly worked as a barmaid for the Silverton Elks Club.
You can just set it there. Thank you. Diversity. It's all about diversity. Okay, so please get out your Buddhist quote sheet. Anybody need a copy? We have them. Okay, so let's read the quote, the second paragraph together. Equanimity is steady through vicissitudes, equally close to the things you may like and the things you do not like. Equanimity contains the complete willingness to behold the pleasant and the painful events of life equally. It points to a deep balance in which you are not pushed and pulled between the coercive energies of desire and aversion. Wouldn't that be great? and I love that phrase, coercive energies. So the coercion is due to habit, right? The coercion you feel, to have the third cookie. That's mine. And then I'm miserable that I did it. But this push. Okay. Let's see, what else are we doing? Oh, I wanted to talk just a little more clarity about the goal here and about how the third class and beyond the third class could work. So what we're doing here is working on our awareness. Buddhists are insiders. You know what I mean when I say that? The Tibetan word for it, I don't know what it is. Maybe
Nangpa.
Nangpa. Pa is like a person.
Yes.
And nang?
In.
Yeah, we're an inside person, so you're a Nangpa. Isn't that a cool name? I like that. I'm a Zopa. Person of patience. Ha. Anyway, working on it. But Nangpa, we're Nangpa. So Buddha always said, you know, the mind is the source of everything. So just like a wheel has to follow the ox, you know, the person has to follow the mind, the ox pulling the cart. So we work on that. We're Nangpas. We work on the inner awareness. Then we go out in the world. Why do I emphasize this? Because I went out in the world first. I wasn't Nangpa, and I wasn't Zopa. I was fiercely angry at the injustices. And we can do that. It's kind of a waste of time and energy until we do our inner work. Then we can become exceedingly effective without so much stress, without so much conflict. As Lama Michael says, you know, always watch out that you're not just adding more confusion. There is confusion and suffering in the world, right? I don't think anyone will dispute that. And let's be clear, as Nangpas, who first go in and become aware of our own confusion and our own fear, our own not knowing, our own prejudices. And then when we go out in the world to act, we act with so much more clarity, and the effect is non-suffering instead of add to the suffering. Okay, so that's what we're here about. Awareness increasing. What you decide to do as an activist or non-activist or whatever you name yourself is fine, but do it with awareness, okay? Now, I need to say something about these two truths because we will be working on them lifetime after lifetime. So the two truths are the ultimate and the relative is one way to describe them, okay? The ultimate truth is indescribable. So anything I say about it is a finger pointing at the moon, but the finger is not the moon. I can point, right? But don't get all caught up on the finger and think it's the moon, right? Okay, I'm borrowing, metaphors from the classic teaching. So it's indescribable, but still, we write books are written and hours of description are given to the indescribable. Has to be experienced, right? But a few words are immeasurable, unbounded. What are other words? Call them out. You know a ton of them.
For the ultimate truth?
Ultimate truth, yeah.
Suchness.
What?
Suchness.
Suchness. Emptiness. Someone else said something. Ineffable. Yeah. So you got that. Well, someday we will actually realize it. The relative truth is this, is the appearance, the world of appearance. And by appearance, not limited to visual, it's sound, touch, it's all the five senses, plus the sixth sense of the confused mental state that makes stories about all the five. Hard, soft, I like, I don't like, it's mine, it's yours, all the stories. But constantly the five senses feeding in, the sixth sense, and some lineages say a seventh and an eighth sense, all making, mental states, all making something out of it, of the not-itness. Okay? And you can see in that ignorance, well, we live it, right? So the bottom is an ignorance of what? It's an ignorance of reality. It's an ignorance about reality. We do not understand what we are or what anything we see is. We don't really get it. And in not getting it, what happens to us is aversion and attraction. So these are the three main poisons that you'll hear about in Buddhism. Underlying one, ignorance. Ignorance of what? the nature of reality. On top of the ignorance, we push things away because we think something's there that isn't there. So now I got to push it away, or I got to have it. Or there's actually a third, which is another kind of ignorance, but it's like, I don't care. I don't care enough to push away. I don't care enough to desire, and I just plain don't care. So that's the indifference. These are the main sufferings, okay? Has anyone experienced any of these? Has anyone not experienced any of these? Because then I want to talk with you. So you get it. So I say this because this is our framework for talking about things like the isms, right? So Camilo asked a really interesting question last time. Like, Zopa, you said, race doesn't exist, but we're going to work on racism. But what is this kind of mystery of it doesn't exist, but we're going to work on it? Well, that's the mystery. It's the mystery of our situation, right? You're sitting here in a relative sense. Each of you exist with a name and, a body, a bunch of thoughts going through your heads, a bunch of physical sensations. That's all the relative world. But on the ultimate level, you can investigate each and every one of those and experience them as nada. Not there. We are just hallucinating all the time. Kind of scary when you get at it. But it actually can be kind of, relieving. It's very much a relief to understand I don't have to chase after things and I don't have to run away. I can simply be. That's what this deep equanimity is, just being with whatever shows up. My one Lama used to say, invited in for tea. I say, I hate what's going on. Set a table, make some nice tea, invite it in. Sit with it. Oh, God. Easier said than done. But that's what we're going to be doing with all these exercises today. Okay. Now, what I would like people to do, because we need a kind of review from last time, is I would like, starting with, let's say, Bill and Celeste, you will turn to each other, two, and then Linda to Andrea. Just, you can move a chair, move over. So two. Mary, you'll be with Camilo. Bob with Linda. Do you see? Keep going. Two. And you can make a three-way. Okay, and here's the question you're going to talk about only for like 2 minutes each. At the end of 2 minutes, I'll ding a bell. Why? How many are talkers and you know you're a talker? Put your hand up. You know you're a talker. Come on, fess up. Come on, talkers. Now, how many do not like to talk, so you'd rather listen the whole time? Yeah. Okay. I'm glad you identified yourself because the non-talkers have to challenge yourself to come forward, and the talkers challenge yourself to just 2 minutes, then done. And here's the question. What do you remember or what did you learn from last time or from watching online or from reading the book that you have carried with you that's been a really helpful idea for you? Okay? All right, so the talkers are nodding. They're so ready to go. And the non-talkers are going, I need some minutes. But let's go. Pair up, and this will be the first 2 minutes. Okay, you have 2 more minutes, so if you've been talking all the time, turn to the other one. I had so much fun watching you. Let's hear back from a few people briefly. Thoughts you had, and please don't share your partner's thoughts. They may not want those shared. Share your own. So there's always a temptation, she said. That way we avoid responsibility, right? So a few things. Mary.
Do we need the microphone?
Yeah. And who's, well, right there.
So the thing that I found helpful was doing the superior-inferior system paper and at home, and and just looking at what my assumptions were and where I was between like where I felt like I was privileged and where I felt maybe that I was not, like which categories I would not be. So that was interesting for me.
Good, thanks. I'm glad you did that. You did some homework. Okay, who else? Over here, Miriam. We could have this mic going too. That's wait till the Bodhisattva night.
I've mostly been reading the book when I can, and that's been really helpful. But one thing that was brought up, we were talking about trying to increase our equanimity on a nightly basis or whatever, and I noticed that in the past I thought, oh, I can just sort of whitewash everybody has Buddha nature, and sort of just like everybody has Buddha nature, and it's all good. But more recently, someone said to me, God, I can't believe how stupid people are, about this current political situation, right? And I'm like, yeah, people are really you'd think that they would be, what? And it just kind of went, my assumption about You know, like, it's okay, everybody's got Buddha nature, it's fine, everyone's equal. It's like, wow, it just like went, so I'm gonna have to work on that again.
Yeah, you saw it. And that's the trick, you know, because on the relative level, we act stupid. Does anybody else ever act stupid? Yeah, it's a stupid question, right? And we need to see that also. And we can fall into either one of these ditches of la la, love and light, na 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 na, it's all okay. And it's not all okay. It's not. Suffering is not okay. And on a relative level. On an ultimate level, it's empty of suffering. Example, people get cancer, and so many of them, including me, will say, that was one of the best spiritual experiences of my entire life. So it was labeled suffering, transformed into something totally different. So empty, right? But so we can get very la-la into the everything's za-za-za. Oh, yes, they're killing people, but, you know, it's probably supposed to happen. Or I mean, and yet we can get to the other level of it's all solid, stupid people. And that's all there is. This is so tricky to hold these things simultaneously and concurrently. So I'm going to go over here to Camilo, and then we'll come back over. Oh, yeah, here, you can do that. We can move this one around too.
Just wanted to clarify that, sorry about that, seem to be good at hitting into people's legs. Just that it wasn't equanimity at all, and like, not that we're all stupid. No, I'm smart, and those people are dumb. That's what the problem was.
I love that. I love that you caught that. Yeah, me and them. Yeah, I have that one really bad. I'm smart, and the rest of you are stupid. Sorry.
So,
it's not funny. I think it's very funny pattern because it's stupid. Okay.
So to continue in the vein that Mary brought up about privilege and non-privilege, she explained how she belongs into each of these groups.
Let's see. Oh,
she's already discussed this, so I think I'm free to talk about it.
Yeah, I was just being careful. Sorry.
Oh, I'm very careful.
Yes, I know you are.
What that raises for me and how it worked for Mary was that it allowed her, as a member of two different statuses, to have some insight into what other statuses may be like. And I also share that, being both privileged and non-privileged. And I think that what one doesn't recognize is the liability of privilege, because privilege does not have any self-definition. If you're privileged, you generally don't recognize your own privilege, and you live with a lot of assumptions, and you don't get the opportunity to realize that they're illusions.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. That is so crucial, what you just shared. A part of the nature of privilege is to be oblivious of the privilege. Just restating what you shared, Camilo. A part of the nature of privilege is to be oblivious to the privilege. It's built into it. It kind of comes out to this saying, I don't care, I don't have to. I don't care, I don't have to. Okay, more.
Which I think leads into the thing that I brought up that's been impactful, which I think came from the reading. I'm not sure how much we talked about it, but the idea that that I need to identify with my whiteness in order to further these explorations and conversations, which is something that I'd never thought about before, really, in that way.
What do you think now that you have that idea? How is it
Well, I think the point to me seems to be that, you know, becoming more aware of, it could be things that don't happen to me or, you know, things that do happen or don't happen because of just how I appear, which of course would be white, and I've been aware of being a woman, but just hadn't looked so carefully as to what things that I'm able to go through life assuming and taking for granted, and you know, various, and just really looking at the response of walking around being
Good,
white.
thanks. Thanks, Dora. A couple other people. Lynn.
Tagging on to that idea is in the book also, which I think is a great book, the idea that I think of course I'm anti-racism, on paper, right? But complicit in a recognition of being complicit in the problem through silence. And then that becomes a balance, though, of, I guess, what we're working on here is wise speech and actions, I guess. But the complicit, oh my God, I'm complicit because we're complicit even in our silence.
Yeah. And the silence is a privilege. Yeah. Because some folks can't stay silent, because staying silent means death, literally. Not just economic deprivation, but actual death. So, this is such a good discussion, exploring what comes with that privilege. Yeah, Linda.
Andrea and I were talking about the same topic about our whiteness and becoming aware of it. And I shared with her that I was talking to some other friends about this that had taken some other similar kinds of courses. And they said that one of their friends had taken up saying, "Hi, I'm so-and-so, and I'm white."
Oh, wow.
Just so to get that feeling of
Yeah.
identifying with a race. I thought that was really powerful.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm glad you gave that tool. I didn't know that one. Okay, somebody else who has not spoken, Sally. We'll go there, then we'll go back there. I can't see that direction.
I'm just struck by that statement of listening to a YouTube of this, that's called Nanette, and she's a white, lesbian, Australian woman, and she talks about relating to white, male, heterosexual straight men, and references. Now, I know it's maybe a little hard for you to hear that, guys, but you guys created the categories. And now there's a category for you, too. You can't step out of it. You got one, too. It was powerful at the moment.
I had the opportunity to be invited to attend another class on racism. I started it and then I stopped. And it took a while for me to really come to the conclusion of why I stopped. One of the leaders in there was saying, how angry she was, and she was talking about her position in broadcast and how she had been passed over. And somehow, in my psyche, I just felt that you talking about being passed over. I grew up in this, and I experienced it all, and there was nothing, and I'm not angry about it. I went into myself, my true self, and I made peace with it. As I told them, I know that it exists everywhere. It's all around me. It's ingrained in the system. But at the same time, I'm not going to be attached to it. I let it go. And I feel like that regardless of how many classes we have, for instance, just like the freedom marches and stuff, until we go within ourselves and be willing to change, I mean, you can make people aware. They're aware, but what is it going to do if you're just aware and don't do anything about it? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I feel like for me, the best what I can do is be the best that I can be to all people. Yeah. All people, regardless the race or gender or sex, whatever. So that is what I'm working on. That's my goal.
Thank you. Now, I want to, can you save it just 1 minute? Because I want to come back to some of the material. We'll keep opening it up for discussion, but we have to go back and forth. So much of what people have raised has to do with this issue of the power piece. So each of the isms, it's so important to get clear about what is this power we're talking about. Each of the isms are within the relative realm. Of course, they're empty of inherent existence, but we know they function like violently, virulently. And they also function mildly, but as Celeste says, they're ever present. So each of them has this aspect of prejudice, prejudging, judging ahead of time, walking around with the judgments already in place, you know. And the more the privilege is there, as people said, the less you know you have the prejudgments. Because it seems like I'm just right. I'm right about this. And we've all met people, or we've experienced that ourselves. I think this group of people is like this. And this mechanism occurs whether you're an activist on the left or a far-right KKK member. That mechanism, that ignorant mechanism exists. I think black people are like this as an activist, you know. So I'm gonna, either as a black activist, maybe I have, you know, I do have some prejudgments, but as a white activist, progressive, I'm gonna have my preconceived, and I bring that in, and it can cause a lot of confusion. Of course, it's easier to see white supremacists' problem, right? They have a problem with prejudging. I don't, right? So working from the inside. So there's these two aspects, the prejudgment, prejudice, tied together with the power aspect. Who controls the resources? By resources, we mean all the resources. We mean money. We mean media. We mean, you know, everything, curriculums, etc. Who controls the resources? And that can be on a macro level, you know, multinational corporate boards, and it can be on a micro level. You know, in this class, I need to sit here and go, okay, I've got this role as a teacher. I need to put out some information. But there's always a tension between how much you open the floor, how much you close it, you know, hopefully only as a facilitator. But still, I'm here leading this because of causes and conditions of 20-some years as a white person practicing the Dharma, and 20-some years before that doing anti-racism. That's the only reason I'm here, causes and conditions. So there's always this tension. There's some power here in this seat right here, right? It's got a name and a blah, blah, and a blah, blah. Luckily, not too much power. Okay, so what I want we're going to move to what Mary has. I want to hear from Camila, who's had his hand up, but we're going to move to this superior-inferior system in a deeper look, in an exercise. But I want to just say this about this power and prejudice. Every one of these roles is complete confusion. You've got that, right? We're going to become more aware of them to move through the confusion, right? You have to look at the garbage in your house before you can clean it up. You have to say, yeah, it's garbage. Why am I holding on to this cracked, broken thing, you know. This is the paradox piece of seeing this unbounded, unfettered truth where we're completely free. We're completely free of all this stuff and can be. Some part of us, our Buddha nature, is not caught in it. So Leslie's referring to that when she says she doesn't feel caught. The goal isn't necessarily not to feel caught. If you are there, that's great. That's from a lot of work. If you are caught, the goal is to see how. How am I caught? Like Dora looking at, wow, white. I'm white. What does that mean? And I'm a woman. What does that mean? I'm a white woman, so I'm unprivileged, privileged. How do those play off each other and bump into each other, and how can they work to give me insights? One of the things I learned in these workshops is what I want as a woman in the so-called inferior role by society and so-called unprivileged. What I want from my male bodhisattva allies gives me a key insight into what people of color might want from me. That was one of the biggest insights I got. So in one workshop, the question was, okay, as a woman, if you had stand-up, great male ally, and now we say ally bodhisattvas, what would you want them to do? I could think of like 6 things right away. I'd want them to have a male bodhisattva ally group, and I would want them to think about what they could do. I would want them to not be silent about sexism. I would want them to point out the sexism. I would want them to talk with me about why they don't. So, you know, then I think, okay, now as a white person, probably people of color want those things from me. So you start to see how this inferior, superior dynamic can get used to break through. Okay? We're going to do some more of that, but I want to stop there because that was a lot of info. Other things, or Camilo, did you have something from back there a ways? We kind of went forward. It's coming around.
We've been talking about categories that are elaborated. It was pointed out that people with privilege create these categories. And we've looked at this discussion from the perspective of the 2 truths. And, you know, we may be aiming at getting to some ultimate truth, but we've got to go through the relative truth before we get there. And whereas the relative truth generates these categories, and these categories are conflated with privilege, power, you can still, in the relative sense, realize that these categories are non-existent, that they're fictions, that they're elaborations and constructions. And I think while there's a benefit from understanding your place as a privileged person, whatever category it might be, where you need to get to is to realize that privilege is meaningless in the ultimate sense.
Yeah, in the ultimate sense, we have to be careful because we're not quite, the ultimate is indescribable. So it is the essence that is empty essence of everything. Everything you just said is so true about the relative, and all of that is relative. So even on a relative level, this is where we got last time, and your question came up, and it's a really good one. On a relative level, race is a construct. Privilege is a construct. All of it's a construct, just conceptions, right? They don't really exist, but look at the power of them. Non-existent concepts just constantly battering us around, inner and outer, right? This is what we got to get a hold of and help other people get a hold of. I want to go back to this statement Sally said that her friend said about constructing, no, what was the word? You created.
Created the category.
Okay, I want to talk about,
Now there's a category.
yeah, now you suffer from them. Yeah. I want to talk about that because that's not, okay. Did you, Sally, create the category of being white? Did you create it?
I grew into it.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to talk about that word created. I think it's too much blame. I'm just going to say it felt blaming. And I know you well enough that I can work with you this way, that we have some real big ditches on a relative level to work through here. One is blame, blame self, blame other. We got to find who the culprit is, right? Why? Because it's so painful to see it's my own ignorance. It's my own ignorance. It's painful to see that. But at some point, it's a great relief to see that. Can you get that? Can you get that contradiction? It's painful, and then it's a relief. Why? Because it's like the old Buddhist saying, if there's a thief in your house and you don't recognize her, she's going to steal everything. You're never going to see her. You're going to go, no, that's just my niece, you know. You got to point at the thief, and I should stop pointing out. It's my own ignorance. It's my own fear. It's my own pain. This is what the work is, working through. It's getting information, but especially for Westerners, there's a psychological, emotional component to it. Now, this thing about do we create it or did we get born in it? I don't know that we should spend too much time. It's like the Buddha said, you get shot with an arrow. Don't spend too much time thinking about where'd this arrow come from? What's it made out of? Is that a metal head in there or is that stone? No, pull the arrow out, right? So we don't want to get too far into it, but it points at something very important. All of these roles, let's go to this one up. I used to call it one up, one down for 20 years, so I'm still doing that. Superior, inferior. Look at that handout, your superior, inferior system handout. Now, this is one to work with a lot because this is an attempt to describe what we were handed, not what we created. But we do, as Lynn said, perpetuate it. We perpetuate it through silence. We perpetuate it through actions that are full of anger, full of guilt. Guilt's the other big ditch. Guilt's the other big, big ditch. So, what did I want to say about this? Oh, okay. Let's just think for a minute. Answer this question for yourself. First, locate yourself in this superior role, okay? Find one social category in which, make it a social category, not, I was the oldest in my family, a social category, race, age, gender, class, okay? Everybody got one in your mind? Okay, just one. Locate yourself. Now, ask yourself, why do I not speak out when I see some kind of abuse of the other, even mild? If it's race, then why don't I speak out on racist statements? Why don't I speak out on sexism? Why don't I speak out on classism? Just take that inside for a minute. And be kind to yourself. Be honest, but be kind. So let's hear back from some people, especially people who have not spoken yet. Who wants to? Yeah, Carolyn. Why not?
I'm still looking for a way to be effective.
Okay, so you don't want to do it in a not effective way.
I often try and find it's ineffective, or I don't like the consequences, so...
Okay, good.
I think I'm not skillful sufficiently to
okay. And
my goal.
And what feeling might be under that?
The feeling I have?
Yeah.
Disheartenment.
What? And
disheartening.
Oh, discouraged.
Discouraged.
Okay. Is there any anxiety or fear?
I think I would like to be viewed in a this way instead of a that way.
Thank you. Yeah. And which of the worldly concerns is that tied to?
Worldly concerns, reputation.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. That is it. You nailed it. We want to look a certain way, so we don't say it. Yeah. Who else? That was great. Thank you. Peter.
It was a case where I was not the powerful one in the case. It was the boss.
So you are under. Oh wait.
I was under.
But what's your superior role?
My superior, well, being a white male.
Okay, white male,
And
but you're the employee.
The employee.
So you got a one up and one down going.
Yes, and the boss was making a sexist statement about another employee. And it was in a group situation, and I was already on rocky ground. I didn't want to risk my job, was part of it. But also the person who was the object of the statement seemed to be responding positively to it, and I didn't know, so I didn't want to hurt her or risk that, and so I was just confused about what to do.
Boy, is that, that just points out the whole bee's nest, is we don't know why that person, the woman targeted, responds in that way, but I want to ask how many women have been dissed and then responded in a way that was kind of nice? Look at that. I want you to see that. How many people of color have been dissed and responded in a way that was not boom? Okay. So, but you see, people on the one down level, when we are receiving, I'm speaking as a woman now, when we are receiving something, especially in a group, we have been trained to be nice and to be passive because it's too darn hard to speak up. What happens when you speak up? Well, we've recently seen a great example. You are at least ignored, but you can be terrorized too. Okay, so, but back to what was your worldly concern that you might be protecting?
Worldly concern?
Yeah. What's your job? What's it related to? Gain. Gain and loss.
Yeah, gain and
loss. So the worldly concerns, I'm just going to do a little Buddhist review here. There are 4 pairs. It's what we spend all our time on. My gain, my loss, my pain, my pleasure, my good reputation versus bad reputation, and my praise versus blame. This is what the Buddha says we spend all our time on. And with the isms, what we do is we sacrifice being a bodhisattva ally for one of these 8. That's why this is important to look at. We're so just one. I will. I just want to finish this sentence. We're so attached and habituated to these worldly concerns, which all spin around me, I, mine, that we will sacrifice liberation for them. Okay, so they go like this. Gain and loss, that's one pair. Pain and pleasure, you might say discomfort and comfort. That fits more sometimes. My comfort, discomfort. Good versus bad reputation. That is what others think of you. Good and bad reputation. And praise and blame. That's what they say about you. Okay? We love praise, right? I hate blame. I just hate it. If I see it coming toward me, I head out the door, right? Or I start blaming back. That's what we do. Okay, other comments about this? Laura. Then we're going to take a break.
I think I'm afraid of saying something because I get very emotional and angry, and I'm afraid of, so that's partly the loss of, I might lose respect, but also I'm afraid of just making the situation worse through my own ineptitude. Like I'm kind of aware that I can't see it clearly enough to say something articulate enough that will help rather than make it worse.
Yeah. When we come back from break, I want us to talk about that because Carolyn raised it up, and it's going to be, as we begin to step into the Bodhisattva ally stance, then we get challenged to practice upaya, skillful means. And there are all kinds of very skillful ways to interrupt racist and sexist comments. And I will bring and/or send out to you before the next class a list of possible responses that are gentle, kind of thoughtful, and we don't have to pound someone over the head. Okay, last comment before break. Or, oh, wait. Let's go around. We'll go Celeste, Camilo, and who over here had their hand up? Oh, that's it. Okay.
Okay, I wanted to say this, something that happened on my job. I was falsely accused of something, and my supervisor, who was a person of color, she didn't do anything or say, and she tried to discourage me from doing it. Oh. And so I said no, because this is not right. I'm going ahead with it. And it was in the morning. I'm the first one there. And I get around it because I worked in cardiology as a technician, and so I was doing my round. Then I got stat calls where I was doing the stats at the word, and so one of the respiratory therapists, they made a statement that a claim that they had to go and do a patient because I didn't show up, I wasn't there, But what happened was I had saved everything that I done, and on the papers it showed where I was, the time, because the machine took the times where I was. But sometimes people just are afraid to stand up. She calls me C, my supervisor. She would say, "Oh, C, don't do that. You know it ain't gonna matter." Oh yes, I'm gonna let them know that I did not do that, and I got proof. And so then it went to the head person, and then she went back and contacted the head person of respiratory, and then they had to apologize because they lied.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, when we're, this whole superior-inferior system is locked up in fear on both ends. I'm afraid as a white person when a person of color comes towards me and starts saying to me, you know, I think that was racist, or I think that was, you know, prejudice, I can feel anxiety come up. But on the one down, this inferior role, I'm scared to speak up. I have done it plenty, believe me, and I've gotten all kinds of things. Sometimes you get a reward because you run into someone who's awake and aware. Sometimes you get punished. So, I mean, you know, like thrown out of the dinner table in your house, which has happened, for speaking up. You, out. Okay, bye. Literally. So, you know, and it does come back to, I didn't know how to do it skillfully. Okay, last comment and then a break.
Well, when you asked the question, you made an assumption that we don't speak out. And I've been in trouble most of my life for speaking out.
Yeah.
And I think that certainly there have been times when I didn't have the courage. So I think we need a refinement on those qualities that interfere with it, and it would be shame and pride. Shame is very difficult to tolerate, and pride gets us into unskillful means.
Yeah, and it's going to be different for everyone. What rises? Shame, pride, fear, anger. It's going to be different, but for sure. Okay, let's take a break, about 10 minutes, come back at 10:35. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Probably there's tea downstairs.